The Serenity Grand was a hushed world of expensive silence, until one manager's casual cruelty met a woman who looked ordinary, and a single slap sparked a reckoning that would reshape an empire. The air in the lobby of the Serenity Grand always felt expensive. It was a carefully curated blend of chilled air, the faint, clean scent of white tea and jasmine, and the hushed, reverent silence that only comes when everything around you costs more than your car. I was a front desk agent, and my job was to be the smiling, unflappable face of that expensive silence. But that day, the silence was about to shatter. My manager, Mr. Harrison, was a man wound tighter than a grandfather clock. He stalked the pristine marble floors like a hawk, his eyes constantly scanning for imperfections. A misplaced decorative pillow, a fingerprint on the brass railing, an employee whose smile didn't seem quite genuine enough. He was a nightmare of micromanagement, but we all put up with it because the pay was good and the tips were better. There was another side to him, though. A uglier side that usually stayed just below the surface, emerging in snide comments about certain guests, or a condescending tone he reserved for specific staff members. We all knew what it was, but in the world of five-star hospitality, you learn to ignore a lot. The woman who walked in that afternoon didn't look like our typical guest. She wasn't dripping with diamonds or trailed by an assistant juggling shopping bags from high-end boutiques. She wore a simple but impeccably tailored navy blue pantsuit. Her hair was pulled back in a neat, elegant style, and she carried a single, well-worn leather briefcase. She looked like a woman who meant business, but she approached my desk with a warm, patient smile. "Good afternoon," she said, her voice smooth and calm. "I have a reservation under Devereaux. Eleanor Devereaux." I smiled back, my fingers flying across the keyboard. "Of course, Miss Devereaux." "Welcome to the Serenity Grand." I typed in the name. Nothing. I tried a few variations. Still nothing. My stomach did a little flip-flop. This was Harrison's biggest pet peeve. "I'm very sorry, ma'am," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I'm not seeing a reservation under that name. Is it possible it was booked under a different name or a company?" "No, it should be under my name," she replied, her smile not faltering. She pulled out her phone. "I have the confirmation right here." Before she could show me, a shadow fell over the desk. Mr. Harrison. He'd materialized out of nowhere, his arms crossed, a sour expression already cementing on his face. "Is there a problem here, Alex?" he asked, his voice dripping with disapproval. He didn't even look at Miss Devereaux. "No, sir," I said quickly. "Just a small system issue. I'm sure we can sort it out in a moment." "A system issue," he repeated, finally deigning to look at the woman. He scanned her from head to toe, and his lip curled in a barely perceptible sneer. It was a look I'd seen him give before, and it made my skin crawl. "Ma'am, our hotel is fully booked. We often have people, like you, trying to get a room, thinking a confirmation on a phone is enough. Our system is never wrong." Miss Devereaux's smile finally vanished. Her posture straightened, and an icy calm settled over her features. "I can assure you, I have a confirmed booking for the presidential suite," she said, her voice losing its warmth and gaining a steely edge. "Perhaps you should check again." Harrison actually chuckled. A nasty, condescending little sound. "The presidential suite? My dear woman, I think you are mistaken. That room is reserved for our most distinguished clientele. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the hotel down the street." The implication was thick and vile. He wasn't just being a difficult manager, he was being openly racist, assuming this poised, professional black woman couldn't possibly belong here. My heart was pounding. I wanted to say something, to intervene, but I was frozen. Miss Devereaux didn't raise her voice. She simply held out her phone. "Here is the confirmation email, sent from this hotel's reservation system this morning. It includes a personal welcome note from your corporate office." Harrison's face was turning a blotchy red. He hated being challenged, especially by someone he had already dismissed. He didn't even look at the phone. He looked at her hand. "I don't have time for this nonsense," he spat. And then he did something that made the entire lobby fall silent. He slapped her hand. It wasn't a punch, but it was aggressive and loud. A sharp, ugly crack as his palm connected with her knuckles, sending her phone skittering across the gleaming marble floor. The handful of guests milling about froze. My co-worker Sarah gasped. I felt all the air leave my lungs. For a long, terrible moment, nobody moved. Harrison himself looked shocked, as if his own hand had betrayed him. Ms. Devereaux didn't flinch. She slowly lowered her gaze to her phone lying on the floor, then raised it back to Harrison's stunned face. There was no fear in her eyes. There was no anger. There was just a terrifying, absolute stillness. She took a deep breath, and it felt like the entire world was holding its breath with her. She didn't speak to Harrison. She didn't speak to me. Instead, she reached into her blazer, pulled out her own personal phone, a different one, and dialed a single number. She held it to her ear, her eyes never leaving Harrison's face. "Security," she said, her voice as cold and hard as the marble at our feet. "Seal the lobby. No one in, no one out." She paused, listening for a moment before hanging up. Her gaze then swept over all of us, me, Sarah, the two bellhops standing like statues by the door, and finally it landed back on the pale, sweating face of Mr. Harrison. A small, chilling smile touched her lips, a smile that held no warmth, only the promise of a coming storm. "As the new owner of this hotel chain, as of 9 a.m. this morning," she announced, her quiet voice cutting through the silence like a razor, "Mr. Harrison has just helped me make my first executive decision." A collective gasp rippled through the staff. Harrison's face, which had been a blotchy red, drained of all color until it was a pasty, sickly white. He looked at Ms. Devereaux, then at me, then back at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. He was searching for a response, for some piece of his crumbling authority to cling to. "Owner?" he finally sputtered, a weak, incredulous laugh escaping his lips. "You? Don't be ridiculous. I am the manager of this hotel, and I am ordering you to leave before I have you arrested for trespassing and harassment." It was a pathetic attempt to regain control, and Ms. Devereaux looked at him with something bordering on pity. "Your employment agreement was officially nullified the moment you assaulted me on company property," she stated, her voice devoid of emotion. "But you are right about one thing." Just then, the heavy glass doors hissed open. Two broad-shouldered security guards in sharp black suits stepped into the lobby. They were our internal security, men who reported directly to Harrison. Their eyes scanned the tense scene, a question on their faces. Harrison's chest puffed out, a flicker of his old arrogance returning. "Finally," he snapped, pointing a trembling finger at Miss Devereaux, "escort this delusional woman from the premises. Now." The guards looked at Harrison, then at the calm, composed woman in the navy blue suit. She didn't even glance at them. She kept her eyes locked on Harrison. "My name is Eleanor Devereaux," she said, her voice carrying across the silent lobby. "I am the CEO of Sterling Hospitality Group, which finalized its acquisition of the Serenity Grand chain this morning. You can verify my identity with a call to the corporate head office. Or," she paused, letting the word hang in the air, "you can check the email that was sent to all senior management an hour ago. The one I'm sure you were too busy to read." One of the guards subtly reached for his phone. The other's gaze shifted, his posture changing from one of questioning readiness to dawning comprehension. Harrison's bravado completely evaporated. He knew. He knew she was telling the truth. The unread email, the unexpected visit, it all clicked into place with horrifying clarity. "Now, as I was saying," Ms. Devereaux continued, taking a deliberate step forward, "you were right about one thing, Mr. Harrison. Security is here. But they're here for you." She turned her head slightly, addressing the guards. "Please escort this man to his office to collect his personal effects. Then walk him off my property. He's never to set foot in a Serenity Grand Hotel again." The guards didn't hesitate. They moved past her, each taking one of Harrison's arms. He didn't resist. He was utterly broken, his face a mask of pure shock and humiliation. "But my career, 30 years, he mumbled, his voice a ghost of its former booming authority. "Your 30 years ended when you decided your bigotry was more important than your professionalism," Ms. Devereaux said icily, turning her back on him as the guards led him away. She then bent down, calmly picked up her fallen phone from the floor, and inspected the screen. Miraculously, it wasn't cracked. A wave of relief washed over me so powerful my knees felt weak. The tyrant was gone. Sarah let out a shaky breath beside me, and one of the bellhops muttered a quiet, "Good riddance." We had survived. We had witnessed justice. We started to exchange small, nervous smiles, the tension in the lobby finally starting to dissipate. Miss Devereux looked up from her phone. Her eyes, which had been so focused on Harrison, now swept over the rest of us. The relief I felt froze in my veins. The coldness hadn't left her gaze. If anything, it intensified. "Don't look so relieved," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "The performance is not over." She walked slowly towards the front desk, her heels clicking ominously on the marble. She stopped directly in front of me and Sarah. We both instinctively stood straighter, our professional masks snapping back into place. "When he sneered at me," she began, her eyes boring into mine, "you looked down at your keyboard. When he called me, 'my dear woman,' and told me I'd be more comfortable somewhere else, you," she flicked her gaze to Sarah, "busied yourself rearranging pamphlets that were already perfectly aligned. And when he struck me," her voice dropped to a whisper that was louder than any shout, "you all just stood there, frozen. You did nothing. You said nothing." My mouth was dry. I couldn't speak. She was right. We were all so terrified of Harrison, so conditioned to stay silent and not cause trouble, that we let it happen. We were accomplices in our own inaction. "A fish rots from the head, it's true," Ms. Devereux said, her gaze now encompassing the bellhops and the few other staff members peeking out from hallways. "But I have found that the rot rarely stops there. It seeps down. It infects everything. It thrives in the silence of those who are too afraid, or too complacent, to speak out against it." She took a breath, a final decisive intake of air. "This hotel is no longer a business. It is a symptom of a sickness. And I am not a doctor. I am an exterminator." Her eyes met mine, and I saw no mercy in them, only resolve. "So here is my second executive decision of the day. Every single one of you is fired." Oh, the word fired hung in the expensive air, heavier than a chandelier. It landed with a dull, sickening thud in the pit of my stomach. Fired? All of us? For what? For being scared? Sarah let out a small, choked sob beside me. One of the bellhops, a young guy named Leo who was putting himself through college, just stared, his face a mask of disbelief. 30 years of Harrison's tyranny, and we were being punished for his final act. "Ma'am, please!" I found my voice, a desperate tremor running through it. We were afraid. Mr. Harrison, he would have fired us on the spot. Some of us have families, mortgages." "Do I look like I don't have responsibilities?" Ms. Devereux cut me off, her tone sharp as broken glass. "Do you think I built a hospitality empire by tolerating environments where my employees are too afraid to do the right thing? Your fear is the soil in which men like Harrison grow. Your silence is the water that nourishes them. You stood by and watched a guest, any guest, be humiliated and assaulted. The fact that it was racially motivated just makes your silence all the more damning." She turned and began to walk towards the center of the lobby, her voice rising to address all of us. "Sterling hospitality is not just a name, it's a standard of excellence, of respect, of integrity. And today I looked at the flagship hotel of my newest acquisition, and I saw none of that. I saw cowardice, I saw complicity, I saw a culture so broken that it is not worth salvaging." Tears were streaming down my face now. It wasn't fair. We weren't like him. We were just trying to survive him. "You have 1 hour to clear out your lockers," she declared. "A corporate HR team is on its way. They will handle your severance packages, which, I assure you, will be generous. I am not a monster. I am a businesswoman. And this is a business decision. This hotel will be closed for 1 month for a complete staff restructuring and retraining. When it reopens, the Serenity Grand will be a place of genuine welcome and safety. For everyone." She looked as if she was about to dismiss us, to turn and walk away, leaving us to our collective doom. But then something happened. Leo, the young bellhop, took a hesitant step forward. His hands were trembling, but his chin was up. "You're wrong," he said, his voice quiet but clear. Ms. Devereux stopped. She turned slowly, raising a single, perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "You're wrong about us," Leo said, gaining confidence. "We weren't just standing there. We were recording." He pulled his phone from his pocket, his thumb hovering over the screen. "My friend works the valet stand. When Harrison started his usual garbage, I texted him to start filming through the front doors. And Alex," he nodded at me, "I saw her. She hit the silent security alarm under the desk the second he raised his voice. That's why your security team got here so fast. It wasn't because you called them. They were already on their way." My heart leapt into my throat. He was right. In my panic, I had forgotten I'd even done it, my fingers acting on pure, desperate instinct. Miss Devereux's stoic expression flickered. For the first time, a hint of surprise crossed her face. She looked at me, a genuine question in her eyes. I nodded, wiping away a tear. "It's a direct line to the main security office," I confirmed, my voice shaky. "We're trained to use it in emergencies, when we can't make a call." "And I," Sarah chimed in, her voice still thick with tears, but now laced with defiance, "was texting the regional manager. I have a whole log of complaints against Mr. Harrison that I've been sending for months. I was telling her it was happening again." She held up her phone, showing the screen. Miss Devereux was silent for a long moment. She looked from Leo's phone to Sarah's, then to my trembling hands on the counter. The icy mask she wore seemed to melt away, replaced by a thoughtful, appraising look. She walked back towards the desk, her stride less menacing now. "Show me," she said simply. For the next 10 minutes, the lobby of the Serenity Grand transformed from a firing squad to an impromptu debriefing. Leo played the shaky but clear video from outside, capturing Harrison's disgusting words and the shocking moment he struck her. Sarah showed the log of meticulously dated messages, a clear pattern of harassment and discrimination. I explained how the silent alarm worked. Miss Devereux listened to it all, her expression unreadable. When we were finished, she let out a long, slow breath. She looked around at our anxious, hopeful faces. "A fish rots from the head," she said again, but this time her voice was different, softer. "But sometimes, if the body is strong enough, it can fight the sickness, even in silence." She stood tall, looking every inch the powerful CEO she was. "My decision stands. This hotel will close for 1 month." A wave of despair washed over us again. "But," she held up a hand, "I am amending the terms. My HR team is still coming, but not to fire you. They are coming to interview every single one of you. You will be compensated for the month off. It will be a paid leave for mandatory retraining in the Sterling Hospitality guest protocols. Protocols that include zero tolerance for what you endured and clear protected channels for reporting it." She looked directly at me. "Alex, you are now the acting front desk manager, effective immediately. Leo, Sarah, I want you to work with Alex and the new general manager, whom I will be hiring personally, to help build the new team." A wave of stunned, joyous disbelief swept through us. Cries of relief and tearful laughter replaced the sobs. She had not only saved our jobs, she had promoted us. She had seen through our fear to the small acts of resistance beneath. "Welcome to Sterling Hospitality," Eleanor Devereux said, and for the first time since she had walked through those doors, she gave us a genuine, brilliant smile. "Now, if someone could please check me into my suite. It's been a very long day."